we're by Tanya of Shimon Gamliel Omer. Do you have that?
It's a little ches.
A little ches beginning of the line. You have a Dr. Svidal? Tanya of Shimon Gamliel Omer. Shivas Yomim Shorta B'Shamim. If there were 7 days in which rain came down straight for low Pasku, and the rain didn't stop, so Yesh B'Hem K'nei Revir Rishon V'Shniyah. That includes both the first and second rains of the season. Tan Rabbi Chiba Shem Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, Lamadi Krosh Revia. Why is the rain called Revia? Revia literally means to have relations. Shiravas Oret. It makes the land fertile. It has relations with the land and makes the land fertile and causes it to grow. Okay. From when can you have hanoah from stuff out in the field, which because the store? Excuse me. Oh no, I have a header which you probably don't have. Yeah. So we're talking about the stalks which are left out in the field. The stalks left out in the field, we said in the Mishnah, after a while they get repulsive. And when they get the repulsive, they lose their Kedusha Shevi'is. So the Gemara misunderstands that right now. The Gemara understands that to mean that once the stuff out of the field gets repulsive, so even the stuff you have in your house loses its Kedusha Shevi'is. And that the Gemara says, I don't understand what's going on. Rabbi Chanina asked the question really. So that once that which is out in the field goes bad, that which is in the house is also permissible? How could that be? It's not bad, it's perfectly fine. So why is it lose the Kedusha Shevi'is? Tanya Rabbi Yishus learned Afilu Achar Shol Shonim Osir Ad Yisrach. You're right. Even that which is left after 3 years, as long as it's indoors and hasn't gone bad, it's still prohibited. It's still Kedusha Shevi'is until it actually goes bad. So therefore, only that which is out in the field and goes back, that's bad. That's what loses its Kedusha Shevi'is. Okay. Tanya, we learned to the Brisa. Teven Shol Shevi'is Ein Shor Osa B'Tit. You're not supposed to take the hay of Shevi'is and put it into pitch or tar as a building material, because that's not a proper use for that which is called Kedusha Shevi'is. However, Sherobati, what happens if you soaked it into a pitch, so a bottle, so then it already loses Kedusha Shevi'is because it's disgusting. Fushakavlu, as long as you mixed it in together well with the other components of the pitch. Similarly, Teven Shel Shevi'is, hay of Shemitah, Einos Masal Bekar, you don't put it into a pillow. Nasla Bekar, once you put it into a pillow, bottle, however, it loses its status. Fushiyoshe love, once you sleep on the pillow, it loses already its status of Kedusha Shevi'is, and you're allowed to use it for anything you want, only after the fact. Right. You shouldn't do it, but yeah, if you did it, it's okay. I mean, it's okay, but lose the Kedusha Shevi'is. Tanan. That's right. Teven Shel Shevi'is. The hay of Shevi'is Maushia also Mishum Tzvichim. If it grows wild during Shemitah, do I say that it has the prohibition of Tzvichim or not? Now, Tzvichim generally is talking about something which is intended to grow, or even if you did intend to grow, but when it grows wild, you're afraid that somebody might cultivate it and claim that it was Tzvichim, so therefore Chazal answered it. So the question is, does that apply to any type of a usage? In other words, even a grain which is not used for human consumption, such as hay, we're choishish for Tzvichim? Or do I say that that's not true, because the only thing I'm afraid a person will plant is not stuff which is going to make up hay, but rather stuff which is going to make up actual food for human beings.
What normally do?
Feed it to animals. Horses, cows.
But not just rely on it like
no.
Isn't there Kedusha Shevi'is on animal food?
Right, there is Kedusha Shevi'is on animal food. The question is whether there's an issue of Tzvichim on animal food, but they're afraid you're going to plant it. So Rabbi Levi said, San Beraya, Shol Rabbi Abba Bar Zavta. Levi San Beraya asked Rabbi Abba Bar Zavta. Shol, he said there's no halach of Tzvichim by hay. Rav Zira said, V'ana lo samchis alave. I didn't rely on his psak. Ishtal is the Elaine the Vei Karsana. and I asked the people who lived in Beit Carson, or wherever that place was, and they said that in order to use hay during Shemitah in the Higon, Nagin Avon, we used to be accustomed, Kenishin Tevin Mina Arbu Shmita, to gather the hay from before Shemitah started, because they held that Shemitah of hay is no of Nesvichim of hay are also. V'kan Mechasrin, even when we no longer had enough hay, Maisim and Shariah were bring from places which are permitted, in other words, places where Shemitah was not applicable. So that sounds like Svichim of hay are prohibited. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Masnisa Amarash Mutter. The following brisa tells us that the Svichim of hay are permissible. The Tanya we learn, Tatzaboim, people who dye garments for a living, Babatai, people who fatten up geese for a living, Lochim Mursa, they can take this animal fodder called Mursa, which is similar to Grite, Mikol Adam, from any individual during Shemitah Ve'ena Choshish. Ein Choshim, and they're not afraid that it's something which is Kedusha Shevi'is. Now, Rabbi Yirmiyah saw Rabbi Yirmiyah understood this to mean Afilu mina choshud. Even somebody who's definitely suspect to give you svichim, nonetheless, there must not be an issur svichim in these commodities, and therefore one is allowed to buy or harvest them during Shemitah. Says the Gemara, no. Amarle Rabbi Yasser said, it ain't necessarily so. The only time you can buy hay from this individual is you don't know he's a suspect or not. But it's clearly he's suspect, and therefore his stuff might well be svichim. Also, then it's not prohibited to buy hay from him. Rabbi Shammai. Rabbi Shammai said, Masnisa Omer Shuaser. The Prime Brisa teaches us also that it's also to take that it's also to take svichim of grain of hay, svichim of hay or also. Where does it teach us this? The Tnina Tama we learned over there. If you had a part of a tilson that's a fenugreek plant fall into wine, so it causes that wine to take on the status of the fenugreek, whatever it was, Shemitah stuff, or Kilei Kerem, or Hektish. That's if it gives and imparts a taste. What parts impart a taste? If the fenugreek seed and the fenugreek tree are sufficiently strong that together they give off the fragrance of the fenugreek. Be that as it may, so says the Gemara, here's the proof. I hear you're causing the wine to be lost. In other words, if some of the fenugreek of Shemitah or of Kilei Kerem falls into the pit, so you're causing a loss, right? I'm sorry. I put in a little line here in my notes, so I'm getting stuck in it. You're causing a loss to the wine by the fenugreek stalk, which is tantamount to hay. So we see that fenugreek stalk, i.e., anything similar to hay, has a prohibition of svichim, because the fact that the stalk fell in to the wine and now imparts the taste of the wine asks the wine. So we see that stalk has a din of svichim.
We're saying it's machal behem.
Yeah. We're saying that the stalk is a din of machal behem, and nonetheless it asks it because it's like Tevin. Says more Ramana said no. Could be that this whole brisa is talking about prohibiting the wine into which the fenugreek fell, not because fenugreek or any other machal behem svichim, maybe it doesn't, but rather here we're talking about asering the wine into which it fell because this fenugreek has kedusha shvi'is, not of svichim, but kedusha shvi'is that generates a shiur, that to eradicate it when the right time comes. So he said, Shema min al-kum, there you can extrapolate from here anything about the status of hay. So it's brought down here that hay does not have the prohibition of svichim. Halacha Maisa, that's where we pass.
But it does also
Yeah, only because of the Shevi'is, not because of Svicha. Right. Which means you'd have to do beer on it or something like that. But yeah. No, because it's Ma'achal Behema. So we'll tell you back his same time already. You can put a taste into it. Okay? Says the Mishnah further. Mishnah V'alachava. Mishi yesh lo yilo peir Shevi'is. Somebody who has fruit from the Shemitah year. The Yigash has to be in the time beer comes. What does he do with the fruit? He can give the amount of food for 3 meals to each one of the members of his household. That's permitted. Now, once he did biur, only poor people can eat after the biur. Avallah Hashem and not rich people. Dear Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Echad Aniyim v'Echad Ashirim, Ochin Achar Biur. What's the biur? Doesn't matter who comes along. Anybody can eat the stuff, whether it's rich people, poor people, makes no difference. Right. So the Gemara is going to speak about that. My time, let's not try to reveal the true distinction between Aniyim and Ashirim. Between rich people and poor people. Because it says, the poor people of your nation shall eat after biur. For Yisrom, the rest of the stuff, it'll be eaten by who? By the animals. So that Shem don't have a portion. It's possible there's no portion allotted to the rich people. My time, Rabbi Yossi, what's large? Rabbi Yossi says that everybody gets, because he dachens let the poor people in the nation eat, and also the Yisrom, the people who have excess, meaning even the rich people should eat as well, according to these parameters. So he doesn't draw a distinction between, he doesn't draw any distinctions here, and he says that both Aniyim and Hashem can eat equally after the biur has taken place. Now, however, we have a third shita. Tan Rabbi Shimon Omer, Hashirim ochli mina otzar achar biur. Rich people can eat from an otzar, from a gathering, after biur has occurred. Now, this is a very interesting halacha. Biur has to be done by private individuals, but if Basin somehow exercises a power of authority over the distribution or the warehousing of the fruit, so then no biur is necessary. Is that clear?
They go into people's houses and say this has to be taken out?
No.
So how does it
They don't do biur. Any food which is in an otzar basin is not liable to biur.
Is that like a legal fiction?
It's legal fiction, doesn't belong to anybody.
So you can be magnet to Besdin?
Right. Okay. Legal loophole. Okay? So that's what it says here. Aniyim can eat outright from the field after biur. Hashem can only eat from that which was kept in the otzar over biur. My time, Rabbi Shimon, what's like Rabbi Shimon? What pasuk teaches this? The Yisrael achlu of Yonei Amcha. The poor people in the nation will eat ad Yisrael. It continues the pasuk until the word Yisrael, which teaches us. I forgot I learned the pasuk. Yeah, it's similar to the previous Tana. In other words, that there has to be a way for the Aniyim to be able to eat, because it says "V'chluy of your name Chad Yisrael." So how does he reconcile to? How does he make it that that they could have a case where Hashem can eat, yet at the same time they cannot eat directly? So therefore, he says there's a concept of otzar basin from which they can eat, right, without having to actually do biur. But if they're own private stuff, they of course have to do biur on it. What? He's learned it for the rest of the pasuk. The Yisrael and the leftovers tochel chayas hasoda, being by the beasts of the field. Puts common differently. Okay. It's interesting. Chaznish here he brings down, says that when the time of biur comes, you don't know exactly which day it's going to be necessarily, right? Because it's hard to know a precise date. So it says you have to do it over and over and over again, once a day.
The setting up of the Otzer?
No. Being mafkir, renouncing your ownership. Yeah, the real thing. According to me, you have to do the real thing. So you have to do it each and every day because you don't know when the actual head falls. Okay? Let's go back to Mishnah. Mishnah Perush Naflo B'Yerusha. If somebody had fruit of Shemitah which fell to him as an inheritance, Oshnasla Matana, they gave it to him as a gift. Rabbi Lezer says he gives it to people who are eating on his table, but he himself cannot eat it, and the more will explain why. We say let the sinner not be rewarded, and that now he has to spend less money to feed his family. They should be sold to other people to eat, or they can be sold to the people even at his table, but the value then has to be divided up among other people. He can't, the owner who inherited, cannot keep the value for himself. Okay? Says more. Let's go to Gemara. Amar Shimon Lakish. Shimon Lakish said, "The peros avido yimazis." Now I'm just to tell you about fruit. Okay? Says the Gemara. Vatani, didn't we learn? Amotzi peros avero lo yika bohem. If you find fruit, which avero was done on them, in other words, the beer was not done to them, you're not even allowed to touch them. Just leave them where they are. So how can our Mishnah we're giving you some mates? What you should do, you should just leave them where they are. That's it. So it says the Gemara, Tambon Mitzia. There, we're talking about against the Mitzia, so therefore, I skipped the word Shanyoi. There it's different. Tamon Mitzia, there it's a Mitzia. Don't pick it up and you won't have any responsibilities. But here, Shenofla you got as Yerusha. What are you going to do? How are you going to renounce the Yerusha? So therefore, we have to make this pshar and this compromise shita. He must eat it. Our Mishnah is talking about not just fruit which is forbidden, but rather even fruit which is permitted to be eaten during Shemitah. It says when it payos heter, it's talking about fruit which is permitted to eat during Shemitah. So why, if that's the case, Rabbi Lezer says you have to give it to somebody else to eat, why can't you eat it yourself? He says you have to give it to the people who are members of your household. Why can't you eat it yourself? So it says Rabbi Lezer Shamutihi. Rabbi Lezer is from the students of Beis Shammai. We learned Ochlim Perush Shevi'is Shelo B'Tova K'divrei Beis Shammai. When you eat Perush Shevi'is, you can't have gratitude to the person who gave them to you to eat, because they're like a foreign entity now. So if that's the case, so we say like Beis Shammai, he can't derive any benefit from it. So if he, not that he can't derive benefit, I take that, he can't express any gratitude for it. He's not allowed to express any gratitude or harbor any feelings of gratitude. So therefore he can't eat himself, because then he'll harbor feeling of gratitude to whom? He can't eat himself. Why can't he eat himself?
In other words, he won't think of it himself.
He's got to be to give it to the man's family, and he cannot eat himself. Why cannot he eat himself? Because then he's going to have gratitude to the deceased. No, the deceased. It was a bequest. Or it says, or it says Mishnah Matana. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be a dead person, but the person who gave him the gift. He's not allowed to have gratitude to anybody else, so he gives it to the member of his household to eat. Right? So it won't be his gratitude. He won't be grateful. Oh, so that's what they said to him. That's what Rabbanan said. Isn't the sinner getting rewarded? In other words, this way they're going to have gratitude to him. So therefore, b'shita, so Yeshivu, they responded in the shita. They said, b'shita's chashat, according to you, said they should be given to the people on his table. Ein achayt in this car is not the sin rewarded, el imachru. So if that's the case, let them be sold to third parties, and let the monies go to other people. So that way nobody will be grateful to anybody else. Everybody will be mean and miserable, and not mean, but distressed. So that's much better, because then there won't be any gratitude. Okay? Rabbi said, Holy Rabbi Yassi said, V'ilay Kurnasaya, by artichokes that were not eradicated during Shemitah. In other words, the bia was not performed on them. You have to take a corresponding value to the artichokes and throw it into the Yam HaMelech, into the Dead Sea. So that's true, he brings down here, even though artichokes actually cost more to prepare than they're worth. Anybody here like artichokes? What? But they can't be, you don't know what they are? What do they look like? Yes.
They're probably long and thin.
No, that's asparagus.
They're made sort of a bunch of leaves that are around it in a circle. Around the heart of the artichoke.
There's heart of artichoke too. No, that's not that. Hearts of palm are whitish.
And you pick off a leaf and you eat the bottom part. Part that is attached to the stem.
The Medrash brings down, it says, when an Adam Rishon was cursed, it says, Kots v'dardar yatzmiach loch. Thorns and dardarim will grow for you. So the Medrash says dardar is artichoke.
Well, that's where you're supposed to clip off the top of the artichokes when you cook them, otherwise they hurt.
Yeah, they're thorny. So, boy, you're a real Bronx boy. Do you eat any vegetables? So at any event, so we like artichokes too. It's a big thing about it in our family. So in any event, so the artichoke, I might think that you don't have to. You have artichoke past the biur, so it might not be also bad because artichokes actually have to spend more money than they're worth in fixing them up, and cooking them, and preparing them. So no, nonetheless, you have to take the value of the artichokes and throw it into the Yam HaMelech, because now you have to derive any hanoah, per shmita, which are kept after the biur. Okay? They're prohibited. Okay, says Mishnah further, going back to the Mishnah. Oh no, not yet. Sorry, scratch that. Let's go furthermore. Rabbi Chizkiah, totally unrelated issue, out of left field. Amon asked Rabbi Chizkiah, Mal ma'yabla kfunin, ma'yab means to bring. Kfunin, can I bring small dates of Shemitah Ashkelon to Ashkelon? Amalei said also it's forbidden. Now why do you have, I mean, because we learned that Ashkelon was a city which was outside of Eretz Yisrael, was right next to Eretz Yisrael, and therefore there was no Tumas Eretz Amim on it. So therefore Shabbos that you could bring Peir Shvita there, he said also it doesn't matter, it's still prohibited. Rabbi Chizkiah Avakai B'Shuka de Kesari. Rabbi Chizkiah was standing in the marketplace in Caesarea. Caesarea is Chutz La'aretz. So he saw a certain individual loading up his donkey with Peir Shmita, which should not have been there because it was Chutz La'aretz. They should have stayed in Eretz Yisrael. So normally it's a mitzvah to help somebody out if he's loading his donkey. He turned his face around in order not to see him, in order not to help him. Tani, another version has it parak, that he saw somebody unloading his donkey from this commodity, and he didn't look at them. Why was this true? In order to prove that Caesarea is from Chutz La'aretz. That's why it wouldn't help, in order to demonstrate his displeasure. Rabbi Yaakov heard Rabbi Chizkiah did not help this guy out. I said, Ima Dahain Yaldabar, the mother, this for Rabbi Chizkiah, she gave birth to a real son, because he was a courageous, determined individual. Okay? Now we have a very interesting Musar Haskell. Rabbi Shimon Levi, Rabbi Shimon Levi was living in Beit Shan. Now Beit Shan Rabbi Yehuda Nasi had already declared to be Chutz La'aretz vis-a-vis Shemitah. So if that's the case, he's exempted from Shvi'is. Nonetheless, he was Machmir. He said to his Mafkid, Talmid, he said to a student, Lo tizbun liyerek, you should not buy vegetables, elam in ginsa de Sisra, except from the garden of Sisra, which is considered to be owned by a goy. So it's owned by a goy, so therefore there's no Kedusha Shvi'is there. So Kamal Elioza Chordal Tov. So Leo got up and visited Rabbi Shimon Levi. He said, he said, Zil Omer, he visited Rabbi Shimon Levi's student. So he said, Zil Omer Rabbi, go tell your Rebbe, Leis Hadog Ginsa de Sisra. This is not Sisra's garden. The Udoy Yavas, who was a Jewish garden. The Katle Goy, and a Goy killed the Jewish owner, V'nasim took it away from him improperly. So therefore, Yol Chumrah is doing you no good. Because you were thinking you're buying from a non-Jewish field. It's a Jewish field. The owner was just murdered. However, you don't have to be machmir on Beit Shan. Because Rabbi Ray said Beit Shan's Chutz La'aretz. So your pursuit of a Goy's land in Chutz La'aretz, that's totally too machmir. Says more in boys machmir am nafshach. You want to be machmir yourself. So check the same type of chumrah that your friends are being machmir. Meaning things have to do with their cheretz, things have to do maybe with brachas, who knows, whatever the case may be. He's saying to him, don't make obscure chumras. If you want to be machmir is something which is a normal accepted fashion of chumrah. But don't start making severe chumras like this. Don't start making chumras which are, you're not that you're severe, but are unique unto yourself. Because ultimately you'll find that either they'll make you Baal Gaiva, or they're just plain wrong, and therefore those chumras should not be adopted.
So follow the established chumras, don't start making.
That's right. Or follow the established areas in which chumras are accepted.
Except originally a chumra that is now established was something that was
Kasha Ramaisa. But that's what it's saying here. Okay? Let's finish the parak now. We'll go back to the Mishnah for a minute. Last line of Mishnah. Somebody eats the dough from a Shemitah year before the chal is taken off, chayim miso, is liable to death. Why is that? Because even Peir Shevi'is are chayim nechala. A certain individual, certain individual who was suspect to transgress Shemitah. So he said to his wife, Apkin chalos, you know, when I bring you home the grain and you make the dough, take off challah. She said to her husband, listen, Yanko, you don't keep Shemitah, but Apkin chalos, and you want to keep challah. Come on, give me a break. What's going on here? So Yankel said, he said, no, I'm consistent here. Challah medivrei Torah. Challah is the right side. If we that which should have been challah, we get zapped. Shvi'is or Gamliel chaver. Shvi'is is only the Rabbana from Gamliel and his buddies that I'm willing to transgress. So he's willing to transgress the rights, not willing to transgress the Rabbana. Exact opposite. He's willing to transgress the Rabbana, he's not willing to transgress the rights. Okay? What? Yeah, there was no zapping.
No snake biting.
No snake biting took place here. Okay, let's start the new parak. Did we do a blaya, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next part is short, as you notice. Let me just get a cup of coffee. Now we're going to change gears. Now we're going to speak about Pruzbul. Pruzbul. Well, Shmitas Ksofim. You know, for rest of the Masech, we're going to talk now about Shmitas Karkos, but Shmitas Ksofim. When does Shmitas Ksofim take place? Who remembers? It was Shram the 8th year. Right. That's correct. That's going to be critical in our issue to prove of the issue. Yeah, probably in several places, of course, Gittin most specifically. Okay. Says the Mishnah. Now, Aloha. If I have Shvi'is Mishametes Samalve, Shvi'is cancels a loan. Bishtar, whether it's written down or Shlo Bishtar, it's a verbal loan. Hakofas Chanus, if you owe a grocery bill, Ain't mishametes. It's not canceled by Shemitah. V'yimaso milva, if however the storekeeper has demanded from you payment, and by that made it a loan, or he has set aside time by which you have to pay him, which is also tantamount to making a loan, a raise in Mishamit and Shevi'is does cancel that debt. Rav Yehuda Omer, Rav Yehuda says, Harishon Rishon Mishamit. If a storekeeper extends you credit to buy salami today, tomorrow extends you credit to buy cornflakes, so then the salami is now a loan. The cornflakes is not. As each new extension of credit takes place, the previous one becomes a loan. Okay? The status of the previous extension of credit changes when new credit is extended. Credit is not canceled by Shemitah. Because there has to be a repayment demand on the table. Or a scheduled payment. Otherwise it's not called a loan. Right, and by
It's like open-ended. There's no.
right.
Isn't this just a takana to help commerce?
Nope, doesn't seem that way. It seems like he's learning this is mamish ta'alacha. These are not commercial takanas. Okay, shchar sacher. Eno mishamit. The wages of a worker are not considered to be mishamit. They're not canceled by Shemitah. Otherwise, all the yeshivas would cancel all the Rabbeim's salary, right? If you made it into a loan because you demanded it or a time was set for it, I raised the mishamit and it is mishamit. Here's a very interesting thing. Any work which stops during Shemitah, Shemitah is mishamit. The she'enu paseker Shemitah, work which doesn't start during Shemitah, eino mishamet. The Shemitah does not interrupt it. It does not cancel. We'll see what that means in the Gemara. Okay, let's go to the Gemara now. Nicha shelo b'shtar. I understand why a loan which is not written into a document is canceled by Shemitah. But b'shtar, if a loan is written to a document, b'yaseh kemal mashkon, let it be considered as if it's a loan on collateral, because once you have a loan written down, it does have collateral, right? All the guy's properties are considered to be under lien to the loan. So, lo yeh mishamit, and let it not be mishamit, because we learned that a loan with a lien is not mishamit. We're going to see that later on, because it's considered collected already. Because he has the lien. Okay?
Anytime you have a mortgage.
Yeah. Yes.
Any type of put up.
That would not be canceled by Shemitah, a mortgage, right? Okay. What? No difference. No, he said about the mortgage itself, which is like a secured loan, so as collateral. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan said, where there is no guarantee of responsibility. Krameo said that where the guarantee is not overt, it doesn't exist. As Uvdu come Rabbi Yochanan, so his case came for Rabbi Yochanan. B'shtar shem b'achrayus, the shtar in which the achrayus is not written. It didn't say that his property is under lien. And he said that nonetheless Shemitah cancels that loan. Why is that so? Because he said just because we learn from the I didn't make something clear here. I apologize. Let me go back for one line. We don't pass like Rameir. We pass even if a shtar doesn't have achrayus written in, achrayus is implied. In other words, that there is a lien on land, regardless. The default attitude which we have against a milva b'shtar is that automatically it entails a shibud nechasim. By definition, the borrower's land and property is under lien to repay the loan.
Every milva b'shtar automatically.
What?
You're saying every milva b'shtar.
Right. Every milva b'shtar automatically even doesn't specify that aspect. So in that case, a shtar shem b'achrais came from Rabbi Yochanan l'chor shnat be mishamet. According to what I just said before, because he said if there is karkos and if there is a collateral involved, a lien, so then it's not mishamet. And here there is a lien, right? So we just said that in our shtaros, even if they don't have achrais, it's achrais written, so there is a lien. If there is a lien, so therefore shmi should not be mishamet. So Amar said, just because we said alumdus, you think we're going to follow that in psak halacha? And as I said alumdus, that shvi should not cancel debts which are written into a shtar because there's a lien. That's nice, but the Mishnah doesn't say that. Our Mishnah says that it does cancel those kinds of debts, as long as there's, it's not overtly made into a loan. So shvius does cancel. So therefore, he says, I cannot. It's because I said a nice loan to explain why that should not be the case. You cannot go by me, and therefore we have to say, that shvius cancels this debt.
What's the source of Mishnah Shmuel? Is that
Which rule?
About what's canceled and what's not canceled?
It's all going to be smart. We're going to see it later on. Okay? Not all. Well, we're going to see them. We're just going to discuss this issue. This is only if the our Mishnah is talking about a shtar which has achrayus, there is a lien, but he has no land. So if there's no land, lo neen, right? No tiki, no washi. There's no land, there's no lien. There's nothing to talk about.
I just want to get something straight. So are we now saying that, before we were saying that every shtar automatically
creates achrayus nechasim, and we're sticking with our guns.
So it doesn't make a difference what the shtar says, whether it's achrayus nechasim and not achrayus nechasim. It automatically is achrayus.
Right. Is that a problem?
Yeah, but I just don't understand why the Gemara is talking about labels which are inapplicable. We're talking about milva, shtar, she'ein lo achrayus nechasim.
Because our Haminu say that our Mishnah is going like Reb Meir. Because the Mishnah is prior to the way we pass with the halacha. So it's going like Reb Meir. So then I would say the only shtar, right? Only shtar sheshba achrayus nechasim has a lien. Otherwise, there's no lien.
So it's only to satisfy our possibility of
our discussion of the Mishnah, right? It says the Gemara, I'm yeshlo karka. So I'm yeshlo karka. Let me again. I'm writing in Rashain Lakartaba where he has no real estate. I'm yeshlo karka, but he has real estate. And I'm mishamet, then Shemitah doesn't cancel the loan. I'm Rabbi Yisrael said, I feel yeshlo karka nami mishamet. If he's got land, it's still mishamet. Why is that? Because he holds the land's lien is insufficient to consider as if it's collected. And that's an important point. He holds the only reason why Shemitah does not cancel a debt which is secured. A secured debt is because it's as if it's already collected. And the fact that you have a lien on the land is not considered to be as if it's collected. What would make it as if it's collected? Put on your thinking cap. So what would make it as if it's collected? What? Better.
Signed by Adam?
What?
If the shtar is signed by Adam?
Why would that help?
I don't know. Got May, I guess. In fact, you have
so on. The lender. What?
So if the lender's holding the shtar, it's as if he has the land. As if he has the
Why? No. So we say not that way. I'll give it away. It has to be an apotike. Apotike means designated collateral. A lien is not sufficient for Yossi to consider collected. It's got to be the specific parcel of land that's been designated to be the collateral. Okay? Is that clear?
Isn't the lien rather specific also? Just
generic. Okay? So it says,
It's a generic lien, but it's a Portuguese.
No, Portuguese designated.
Yeah, designated. Oh.
No, he's asking raises.
In general.
Yeah. So also Rabbi Yossi Kurab. Rabbi Yossi's statement is like Rav Dama Rabbi Baba Shem Rav Rav Yossi Rav Yichilo Karka. If you designated land as collateral, Einam Shami, then there's none that doesn't cancel law. So if you designate specific land, but you didn't designate specific land, then it is Meshamit. Okay? Tani, we learned. Hamashabit Sod, once around the track here, let's discuss a little bit further. Hamashabit Sod Alishto. You designate a field for your wife to be the collateral for a ksuba. Varlach, and he went, Umachara, and he sold that land. He sold the designated land. In what's the legal say, she has the right to go to any other, to go to this person and collect the land back. This was designated for ksuba. Oh, I'm sorry. Take that back. I forgot a word there. She doesn't have to collect from that land. She can go to any other property which her husband has and collect her ksuba from the other property of her husband.
Did she collect from that land too?
Oh, so that's what we're going to discuss. So it says, well, Rabbi Hillel said, Kohen Tanya. I did this wrong. I knew I was going to do this wrong. Hore Rabbi Lezer Kehain Tanya. Lezer Paskin like this brayso. Kehain Tanya like this brayso. Chavraya Bon, the Chabura wanted to say, Lo Tibel min Chasim Meshubadi. Let her not collect only from the land which was designated. There was land which was designated to her. Why did she collect from any other land? Let her only live for now. There's free lands in front of her, lands which weren't bought out by anybody else. You said she should collect from that which is put under lien to her, which was now sold. Better she should take whatever's left. And that's only where he didn't say to her, you have no right to any redemption except for this one. If he said to her, this is the only and exclusive place in which you can get your ksuva redeemed, so she's got to go and take it back from the buyer, and could be in order that she has something from which to collect her ksuva. Okay? Says the Gemara, the chazar umachra. Somebody who puts the land under lien to his friend as an apoteke. He says, your redemption should be from here. And then he sells it. No, it takes away from his credit, so to speak, and sells it. That sale is at least a temporary sale. Until they can sort out what's going on here. So the person who bought it, it's a valid sale temporarily. It's not even a valid temporary sale. Gemara asks an unwritten kasha on this. There's a halacha like this. Halacha says that you have an ox, which is a tam, which gored another ox. So that ox, the goring ox, is meshubad, is under lien to the nizak, the person who's damaged, in order to pay for his ox. What happens if the
But I'm not sure. I guess maybe
the mazik sells the ox which did the goring, which is under lien to the person who was damaged. So we say it's sold temporarily. It's sold temporarily until the nizak comes and claims it. It's considered to be sold. So that's a kasha Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi says here that there is no temporary sale. It was meshubah to a creditor, so then even a temporary sale is not a valid sale. So how do we reconcile Rabbi Yossi with the statement which we have by short time, which says that if it's sold temporarily, the sale is a valid sale? It says more chelid Rabbi Yossi. The answer Rabbi Yossi is min hadas from the following dichotomy. Shar Matzu Lavricho. By an ox, so it's very easy to get it to run away, to escape, to flee. And therefore the owner of the field says, you know what, even though my ox was home today, so to speak, in other words, well, not the owner of the field, sorry, the owner of the Nizak says, even though it's my ox that you have at home today, I don't want to rely on that ox, because oxen disappear very often. So I want you to pay me back for the damages cash. So there's no close bond between the ox and the person who was damaged. However, since fields are hard to spirit away and hide, so therefore in that case the fellow says, don't do me any favors. I want specifically the land which was coming to me, and I want the sale to you, which was even a temporary sale, to be disbanded immediately. Okay? Am I making myself clear? By an ox, I don't think I am. Let me try again. By an ox,
what's the difference between the it sounds like the same thing.
I guess what I'm not making clear is like this. By an ox, the question is the claimant somech relying on this commodity as his primary means of collection? A claimant of damages, a nizak, is not going to rely on the ox which damaged him as being his source of payment. Because it's easy for the ox to get away, for the convenient slip away into the forest, exactly right.
I'm not sure that the difference.
But by real estate, that's not the case. So therefore, says Rabbi Yossi, by real estate, the claimant relies on as his primary source of reimbursement on the piece of land. And that's why the sale of that piece of land on the part of the borrower or debtor is not even a temporary sale. It doesn't work at all. I think I made myself clear now.
No, you didn't. I don't think you said that.
No, I didn't.
I'm sure that the point is reliance. I think the point is the ox is a movable object, has a mind of its own, so to say. And
I just want to point out, it's not the mind of its own, but it's mind of its owner.
The owner.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Because we have Baba Basra where
Yeah.
they send them to the forest.
Right.
Now I've lost some other comment too. This is,
Whoops. Yeah. It slipped through his fingers. So that's what's saying here. Rabbi Yosef says, normally I'd say that the sale of the land is null and void because the primary reliance of the creditor is on that land. But here by the ox, I'd say it's a temporary sale because anyway, the claimant is not relying on the ox as primary source of collection because he knows how these things are easy come, easy go. Okay? Hagatz mecha. And let's imagine it this way. Now, this is again a question, Rabbi Yossi. Says more, wait a minute. Let's imagine this situation. Isn't it not possible to conceive a situation in which the debtor will sell the field to a Baal Zroa, muscular guy, literally, which means a fellow who won't give it to the person who wants it as his primary source of collection, who won't give it to the claimant. So that's the case. The Gemara is asking, if your issue is that the claimant feels nervous about not getting paid, therefore is not fully somech das, so you should never be fully somech das even on the field. Because who knows, maybe the debtor will turn around and sell it to somebody who's a violent, difficult person to get along with, and therefore you'll never get it back.
Can you go to Beis Din?
Beis Din can't do anything. Yeah, I mean, when Beis Dins were Beis Dins, but at this time already they couldn't force it. But Mark is a very interesting answer. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Voida, Rabbi Masli, Rabbi Yehuda, the father of Master, said, you know what? Mitzui name Bal Yisrael Lipo. Tough guys fall. Justice prevails. Yeah, but Tadi so says the Gemara, another kasha. on Rabbi Yossi. If somebody wrote a field to be designated collateral for his wife, b'ksuvasa for a ksuva, ulabal chayva chav, for his creditor on his dad, umechach, he sells it, hareis umechucha. At least the temporary sale it is. The buyer should be aware that he might lose it any minute, but a temporary sale it is. Skash Rabbi Yossi says, this Bryce is talking about a case where he says this should be your designated field, but he didn't say lo piron ela mizu. That's when it says ma pligin. Where's Maluk's Rabbi Yossi and Rabbanan and Ravacha actually? When he said, I only want your collection to be from here and nowhere else. Whereas where you limit the collection to that exclusive field. So in that case, Rabbi Yossi says, any sale there for that field is null and void, even a temporary sale. And Ravacha says the temporary sale does go through. Rabbi Ravamar, Pagma, a woman who after her husband's death starts collecting her ksuva, even though she didn't demand her entire ksuva from her husband's heirs, or vice versa, zakva, she set a payment date for ksuva. Even though she didn't collect part of it yet, in both these cases, she loses shmita's mishamit. In other words, normally shmita is not mishamit ksuva because it's not due yet. But the moment she starts collecting or starts demanding it, so it's considered to be a loan. That reverts the status of ksuva to a unique instrument, the status of a loan. Rabchir said, however, in order to convert a ksuva to a loan, in order that it should be considered to be canceled during Shemitah, it has to be achitivkon, that she starts collecting vitiskov, and she demands payment also of the rest. You need both elements. She shouldn't demand it. Or she should demand it when Shemitah is not around the bend. Right. Well, tough. That's what we're saying. Okay? Says one further. You don't have this header. Rabbi Omer Rishon M'Gochuli. You don't have it, right? You start from Nay. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda said the moment the storekeeper extends a second time credit, the first credit extended becomes a loan. So it has more Neshu Makilo Pav Shi and Nasis for Shana Milva. Just because you extend him a credit a second time, the first time becomes a loan? Says more, yes. Kai Dam Rabbi Lezer, that Rabbi Lezer says in the adjacent in the Mishnah. We haven't seen it yet, but we'll see it imminently. To Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Lezer said it's going like Rabbi Yehuda. Now this is a case which we haven't yet seen, and the Gemara assumes that we know it because we should have learned the end of the Mishnah before we went on to the Gemara, but the Kavanaki didn't do that. But let me tell you what the case is. Case is like this. Erev Rosh Hashanah of the 8th year. They think it's Rei Rosh Hashanah. Their basement determines Rei Rosh Hashanah. So the storekeeper split up meat of an animal slaughtered that day for them to eat, to distribute this meat. Then the animal drops dead. Animal drops dead. I'm sorry. Sorry. Scratch that. Turns out that the next day will be Rosh Hashanah. The animal's dead. They gave out the meat. Checked it, right? So it turns out that the next day is Rosh Hashanah. They made a mistake. They thought that day was Rosh Hashanah. They shechted the animal, covered the altar. They divided the meat. It turns out the next day is Rosh Hashanah. So when is Shemitah's Ksafim devolve? Shkia of Erev Rosh Hashanah. So they thought they were already past Shemitah's Ksafim. It turned out they were prior to Shemitah's Ksafim. So in this case, what happens to the butcher's debts from all the people who just took from him meat on Rosh Hashanah?
They didn't pay for it.
They didn't pay for it. It was Rosh Hashanah. They couldn't pay. They thought it was Rosh Hashanah.
That was credit. It wasn't a loan.
Oh, okay. So says the Gemara. So the Gemara says there, or rather the Mishnah says. You say, you know what? Why don't you take a look at the Mishnah quickly?
Really, the one thing you wouldn't have to make a clause because not giving
The Mishnah just says, Ashochet it's a para v'chilka, right after we read to. Ashochet it's a para v'chilka Rosh Hashanah, if somebody shechts a para and divides up Rosh Hashanah, Imi al-Chodesh B'ur, it turns out that was a leap month, and next is Rosh Hashanah, Mishamit. So then, what the butcher's owed for the cow is written off the books. Bimlav, and if not, Einam Mishamit, of course, it's after Rosh Hashanah. Okay? So then there's no Shemitah. Now, concerning this, Rabbi Lezer said, why does this work, Rabbi Yehuda? Why is this debt canceled? So it's like Rabbi Yehuda, even like Rabbi Yehuda, I should say. So ask the Gemara, 1 second, why is that? Where's the claim? It's credit, right? So it says Rabbi Ba B'Shem Rabbi Zira says, became a Shuroi Lamino. Since the storekeeper trusted the people who took from him the meat on Yotiv. So Kamisha Roy Latova Have. Since what makes the loan? Either a claim or the sense of the borrower that he should be paying back. So if the borrower senses, this storekeeper Yankel is such a tzaddik, he trusts me to pay him back, that in of itself makes it a loan. Now, it's normally I don't feel a compelling urge to pay back credit, but here I do, because I feel guilty, because Yankel gave me a piece of meat on Rosh Hashanah and wasn't able to weigh it properly, and wasn't able to write out documents properly, and he gave it to me and trusted me. I feel compelled to pay him back as soon as possible. That makes it a loan, and that's where Shemitah cancels it. Okay?
I mean, you could extend that to any unsecured oral loan.
You might, but it's not necessarily the same. It has to be some sense of obligation. Some sense of obligation like here. So that's what he said. Became a Shuroi Lamino since he was suitable to be trusted. Can be Shuroi Latova, obviously the fellow feels compelled to pay back. Became a Shuroi Latova since he feels compelled to be demanded literally from. So therefore can be Shuroi Litin Lamos, he feels compelled to pay the money.
But doesn't Latova focus on the storekeeper?
What?
Roy Latova focuses on the storekeeper, the language, rather than we should be Roy Latva. We're talking about.
That's true. You're right.
So it's the storekeeper.
No, even though you're right, too bad. Right. It's Yerushalmi. The language is not ideal.
The other thing is, if he doesn't pay back the storekeeper, he's not going to be able to buy the next time.
No, but the ironic thing is that here it serves the storekeeper actually as a terrible loss. Because since the guy feels a sense of obligation, it became a loan. And that's why when it turns out that it wasn't Rosh Hashanah, but the day before, it causes the loan to be canceled. Do you see? Became Troy L'Tova Kamisha Roy Litin Lamos. The car. Now here too, the same thing. What we're really trying to explain is why the moment I extend you a second credit, the first one becomes a loan. And it's the same thing. It's because of my overwhelming sense of gratitude to you, the storekeeper, that you're willing to extend to me credit a second time, I feel an ethical obligation to pay back the first time, right?
The second that is also a loan, according to this sheet.
No, each one in turn makes the one before a loan.
No, but even the last one, according to this sheet, is...
No, storekeeper extends credit to everybody. That doesn't give me a sense of obligation.
And he doesn't feel the sense of obligation to pay back both?
No, only the last one. He always feels more of a sense of obligation on the fact that the loan that he's now. I understand your svara, but what the Yerushalmi is saying is that since now he's extending me an additional credit, I feel a sense of obligation on the previous credit. Okay. Since here he should be paying him back on the first credit, and is not, since Rishon Milveh becomes a loan. Okay, Rabbi Yossi Omer Kol Malach Shipo Sekos. Rabbi Yossi says any work which stops during Shemitah. Now this Rabbi Yochanan Gon Charisha. Rabbi Yochanan says this is like plowing. You're not allowed to plow during Shemitah. So guy, there was a worker who was plowing Erev Shemitah. Shemitah comes, he stops. Can't work anymore. For the whole year he's owed his wages. At the end of the year, Shemitah's Ksafim comes, the wages get canceled. Most wages don't get canceled, but this one does, because it stopped. And the Gemara is going to explain that in a minute. Shimon Lagish Amarki Gon Binyan. Erev Shemitah he was building for this fellow. Then Shemitah came to stop building. And why did he stop building? Not because he had to. That's what it's about to say. Which Shvi'is requires you to stop, becomes then the wages then become a loan.
Does it make a difference if he gets paid by the hour?
No, it makes no difference. Building stops because nobody has money to pay contractors anymore. Right? Because there's not enough money, there's not enough cash for building during Shemitah, right? So building doesn't stop because Shemitah mandates that it stop, but just stops on its own accord. Okay? So now, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi said that we're talking about here, plowing is like Rabbi Yehuda. To Rabbi Yossi Omar, Rabbi Yossi says, Kom lach shiposekes b'shvi'is mishametes, any melacha. Oh, this is a kasha. It's a kasha. I've heard word ma. I glossed over. So in any event, so before we go on to this, I don't know if we'll actually be able to read this tonight, but the Gemara is saying like this. The Gemara is saying, Kohen Rabbi Yochanan. When does it become a loan? The wages when it's work which can no longer go on. So since it can no longer go on during Shemitah, so therefore I'm no longer an employee. The money owed to me now at this point becomes a debt, and therefore Shemitah cancels it. Rabbi Yossi takes it even a step further. He says, even though I could theoretically go on during Shemitah, because I was working in construction, since construction doesn't go on during Shemitah, in actuality, so therefore it's as if I'm no longer an employee as well, and therefore that which is owed me becomes a debt, and therefore it's canceled. What I say, Rabbi? What I say was? No, I meant Reish Lakish. I'm sorry. I meant Reish Lakish. Now the Gemara goes on to another issue. Does Rabbi Yossi hold like Rabbi Yehuda? Meaning, both Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish are arguing what Rabbi Yossi said. Whether Rabbi Yossi is referring only to plowing or even to building. Now, Rabbi Yossi Omar, it's any work which ceases during Shemitah cancels the wages. If it doesn't stop during Shemitah, it doesn't cancel the wages. What is the hold about Rabbi Yehuda's statement? In other words, Rabbi Yehuda who said, what is the hold about credit extended? Does he hold that extended credit also is the same idea, and Shemitah is mishameted? Or is the old extended credit like Rabbi Yehuda? And Shemitah is not mishamed extended credit. We don't know. The Gemara doesn't answer. What do they agree to each other or not? And vice versa. Below Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi. What does Rabbi Yehuda now hold with Rabbi Yossi? Afa God Rabbi Yehuda Amar Ein Derech HaShulchan Lios Note Nisar Chu Note L'Sadina. Even though Rabbi Yehuda said that by extending credit, that the second credit makes the first credit alone because of this idiomatic logic used here of a money changer doesn't give more money until he gets the first money. So here the second credit turns the first credit into a loan. But what about the wages? What about wages? Does he hold the same thing about wages? Perhaps he holds that by wages also, the wages now become a debt incumbent upon the employer, and therefore they Shemitah cancel it. As he say, no, an employer remains an employer until he's paid. An employee remains an employee until he's paid. Since wages by definition are paid at the end of the work, right? So you're always an employee until you're paid. It never becomes a debt. And therefore Shemitah never cancels that out, and we don't know, the Gemara never resolves either question. You don't know what Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda
By the hour, by the day, not by the end of the project.
It still makes no difference. That's true, but the shaila is whether you lose your status as an employee as a result. Or it's even on a per diem worker. Could be he still retains the status of employee until he's paid. He's an unpaid employee. He's a Rebbe in a yeshiva, but he's still an employee. He's not a creditor. So that's a question. Rabbi Yosef regards it being a creditor at the end of that day, or at the end of that piece of work, or the end of that contract. Even in Stav Middle, the shiur is whether that's in fact the case, and whether Rabbi Yehuda would agree with that. Okay, we'll have to stop here for tonight.